If you've tried dip nails and you are struggling to get them to look how you want, you are probably making 11 of the biggest mistakes that I see beginners make when dipping your nails. And the first one we're starting with is prepping your nails. I've had a lot of people say I can't get my dip to stick down, it pops off within a day or two, and then I ask them what their nail prep is, and they say, well, I wash my hands. Washing your hands is not nail prep. That's actually the opposite of nail prep. Washing your hands will cause lifting because the soap and everything gets stuck on your nails. So you want to do what's called a dry nail prep and either take a cuticle bit on an Efile or that glass cuticle pusher like I was using and clean off the excess cuticle that's stuck to your nail plate. After I'm done with the cuticle prep, I like to wipe my nails with some isopropyl alcohol and then go in with a buffing block and gently buff off any of the shine. So you want to have something for your nail enhancement to adhere to. And if your nails are really shiny, you're going to have trouble with getting something to adhere. On my natural nails, I actually do have builder gel on them, but the same would apply if you're dipping directly on your natural nails. You don't need to go crazy, just a very gentle buff of your natural nails to get all the shine off, and then you can use isopropyl alcohol on a stiff nail brush to really clean them and get them dehydrated well. And then I like to go in with an actual dehydrator too. Now we're getting into mistake number 2, applying your dip base thick. If you apply your dip base thickly on your nails, they are going to get thick and chunky. That is the start to keeping your nails nice and thin. It is better to have a higher number of thin dip layers than a lower number of thick dip layers. So you can see as I'm applying the dip base to my nails, it barely looks like any is on the brush. Before you even go to apply the dip base to your nails, you want to wipe off a majority of the liquid on the inside of the bottle so that you don't have this massive amount of dip liquid on your brush, and then you're trying to keep it off your nails and only apply a small amount of that. That is number 2, applying your dip base thinly. Now, number 3 is flooding your cuticles with that dip base. So one of the ways that you don't flood your cuticles is first by applying that dip base thinly. If you have too much dip liquids on your brush, then they are likely going to slide down into your cuticles, and you definitely don't want that. If you leave flooded dip base in your cuticles, you're going to get lifting and your nails are going to look a little bit thinner. So you can see me here pulling the dip base bottle brush out and showing how I wipe the side of it on the inside of the brush before I even go to apply it to my nail. Now, with number 3, something else that majorly helps you from flooding your cuticles is by placing the dip brush not at the back of your nails at the cuticle. You want to place your dip brush a little bit away from your cuticles and then push it back towards the cuticles, fanning it out and then dragging it down to the tip. That also is going to keep you from flooding your cuticles. This leads us into the number 4 mistake I see is not tracing around your cuticles. So what that means is you want to use some kind of pointy nail tool. You can use a metal tool like I was using. You can use a toothpick, an orange wood stick, anything that's pointy. After you do a dip, you want to take that and trace around your cuticles after each layer so that none of the dip or dip base gets stuck on your cuticles. So right off the bat, I do that for every single dip that I'm doing that fully covers my nail. And even the ones that don't fully cover my nail, if I was building my apex, then I would still go along the sides of my nail just to make sure nothing got stuck. Now we're going to talk about number 5. And number 5, this one's going to be kind of controversial. I know some people aren't going to like to hear this, but dipping your nails into the powder will cause your nails to be thick. I know that on social media, you probably see a lot of videos where people are dipping their nails in. Okay, when you are doing your nails at home, you're not doing it for social media. You're doing it so that your nails last as long as possible. You want beautiful manicures that are nice and thin, and pouring the powder over instead of dipping your nail in is going to give you those nice, beautiful, even layers. For me, when I was first starting to dip, I saw people dipping their nails in, so that's what I did. And I couldn't figure out why they got lumpy and bumpy and didn't apply as evenly. Then someone recommended to me that I should be pouring over the powder instead of dipping my nail in, and it was like a light went off, okay? My nails started getting so much thinner and nice, and they weren't so bumpy, which means less filing, buffing, and shaping. Right now, you're seeing me do step number 6 of the biggest mistakes that I see made, not brushing off the excess dip powder after each layer. I like to take a stiff nail brush and really scrub off any of the excess powder. If you don't do that, your nails are going to end up a bit thicker and chunkier, and they're not going to be as even. So some of the powder will get absorbed by the dip base, and then anything that's extra that's just sitting on your nail, you want to scrub that off. Now, you don't have to go crazy, but you basically just want to nicely brush it off with a stiff nail brush. I would not recommend using a fluffy nail brush. I know, again, that's something you probably saw in social media, but that is for likes and comments, right? We are learning how to do our nails so that they last and they look great. And brushing off with a stiff nail brush keeps your layers thinner. So we just talked about how you want to pour your powders over. When we're talking about pouring powders over, that actually only applies to solids and shimmers. When you're using a glitter, flake, or foil, you want to lay your nail flat onto the powder. The reason why we do that differently is because the flake, foil, or glitter, you are not going to get all of that dip picked up if you pour it over. Some people like to pour over their first layer and then lay their nail flat like I'm doing for their second layer. That's totally up to you. For me, I've been able to get my dip liquids thin enough now with practice that I can lay my nail flat for both the first and second dips of my glitter. I'm using a fine glitter here, so that is a lot easier to keep thin than a thick, chunky glitter. Now we're going to get into number 7, which you saw me do for my solid nails. It's actually a thermal powder. That's why the color is changing throughout this. And I do this step 7 regardless of what kind of dip powder I'm using. Number 7 biggest mistake is I see people not using clear dip powder as their last dip layer. The reason why it's so important when you're using dip liquids is because after you're finished dipping all of your layers, you'll go in and activate so that you can buff and shape your nails really nice and smooth for when you put on the top coat. If you skip the clear as your last dip layer, you can have a lot of problems with your colors. So if you're using a solid or a shimmer, you can start to file into that solid or shimmer, and then it looks blotchy and uneven. If you're using a glitter or foil, you actually can turn the glitter or foil to a silver color, and you definitely don't want that. So after you worked so hard to do your beautiful dip mani, if you don't top it with clear and you're really going to be like aggressively filing and shaping because you want your nails to be really nice and smooth before top coat, if you don't do that last layer of clear dip powder, you're probably going to end up messing up your color, your glitter, your flake, your foil, whatever you're using. One of the previous mistakes we talked about was dipping your nail into powder versus pouring over. And I know here that I kind of laid my nail flat into some of the clear and did a little bit of dipping, but I left that in just to be super honest with you guys. My clear powder is full of glitters, so I keep separate clears for glitters, flakes, and foils, and then one for shimmers. And my glitter one is full of glitter, and I've been really lazy about not cleaning it out because I can strain it and clean out all those glitters, but I haven't done that in a while, so that's why you see me laying my nail flat. So yeah, I made one of my own mistakes by not pouring it over, which is why my nails with the glitter ended up a little bit thicker than what I normally like them to, but I was in a rush and still hadn't cleaned out my clear glitter, so I just went with it. Once you're done using your clear dip powder as your last layer, you want to activate. Now we're going to get into the 8th mistake that I see people making when they're dipping their nails. They do not buff and shape. So you can see me here using some different kinds of buffing blocks to really smooth my nails out. And this is what I was talking about, why it's so important to use clear dip powder, because you want your nails to be really nice and smooth before you go and apply your top coat. And if you don't buff and shape them, then they're going to be lumpy and bumpy. Even when you're using really nice quality dips and nice quality dip liquids, they can still get a little bumpy and a little bit uneven. I personally like to do a little bit of buffing at least on all my nails to get them smooth, even for the ones that I don't really need to do it much on. It just helps so that my nails aren't bumpy when I go to apply my dip top coat. Now, if you're just starting out doing your dip nails, you're probably going to need to do a lot more of the buffing and shaping. The longer you do your nails, the better you're going to get at doing them, and you won't have to do as much work on the cleanup after you've activated. I'm going around my nails with a nail drill bit that is extra fine, and it really helps to clean up my cuticles and make sure they're even. You can use a hand file, and if you are just starting out doing your nails, I would absolutely use a hand file and skip the e-file until you are really comfortable just with doing your nails. Now we're gonna get into the 9th mistake that you want to avoid. Before you go and you do your top coating, you saw me clean my nails with isopropyl alcohol and a stiff nail brush. That is what you should do. What you should not do, which is mistake number 9, is to wash your hands with soap and water. You risk messing up your dip top coating. And after all the hard work we just put into our nails, we definitely don't want to mess up our dip top coat. That's going to lead me into the 10th mistake that I see beginners especially make, not following the top coating instructions on their dip liquids. Every dip liquids brand is formulated a little bit differently. Yes, some companies may have the same instructions, but what works for one company is not going to work for another. That's why your top coat might harden, it might not be as shiny, so make sure you follow along with whatever brand you're using. The 11th mistake I see beginners making is a bit controversial, but I'm going to say it anyways. Using low quality dip liquids and dip powders is going to give you low quality results. I've tried over 60 brands of powders and over 30 brands of liquids. I did not have the same results using high quality products as I did low quality. Hence why I don't like to recommend products off Amazon, because I just haven't found that the quality is the same as small dip businesses. Now you know what to avoid, so come check out the next video on how to get beautiful cuticle lines. Thanks for joining me today, Nail Crew.